Many people are calling on Tinubu not to intervene in Niger's coup, but Tinubu seems to be hell-bent on intervening with military force in Niger, per his statement on the ECOWAS platform. And then we were told that he has written a letter to seek for the National Assembly's consent or approval for Tinubu to take Nigeria to war against Niger, using military force to remove the military junta in Niger. But as Akpabio, the Senate president, read the letter on the floor of the Nigerian Senate, he claimed those who were stating that Tinubu wrote to request approval to take Nigeria to war were wrong. And from the manner he said it, he said that Tinubu only wrote the Senate to support the ECOWAS position. You see, there is a gang-up already of the National Assembly and the executive against Nigeria. And it will seem that at every turn, the National Assembly, led by Akpabio, is bent on defending Tinubu at all costs. The statement made by Akpabio is obviously wrong, because the approval or support of the Senate for the ECOWAS position actually means taking Nigeria to war. So it's just plain on English to deceive Nigerians. But the question Nigerians should be asking right now is this: should Tinubu take Nigeria to war? Is it in the interest of Nigeria for Tinubu to take Nigeria to war against a fellow West African country? What many people do not know is that the decision to take Nigeria to war against Niger Republic is not a decision that Tinubu is making himself. From our findings, it is a position of the IMF and the World Bank, which is pushed by an elite group of people who runs the military-industrial complex in the United States of America. This group of persons are the ones pushing the hand of Tinubu to do this military intervention at all costs. But should Tinubu really cave in to the pressures of the IMF and the World Bank, cave in to the pressures of this elite group of the US-led West? It is not in the interest of Nigeria. Number one, because our economy is already bleeding. Nigerians are already suffering. Taking Nigeria into war now will require that we are spending our money, which we don't have right now, to fund a war that will result into the destruction of lives and properties, and as well as our weapons and ammunitions, because we should not expect that Niger will just lie down and allow us to take or run them over. They are going to get backup either from Russia or from the same America. The Tinubu administration should not allow this elite group of people in the US-led West that are bent on world domination. They should not allow them to push Nigeria into war with a neighboring country. America will not do this with their neighbor. Why must Nigeria do it? Particularly because when the weapons, the small one that we have, get destroyed, it is America and Europe and China that we will run to buy these things. They will not give us weapons to replace our weapons free of charge. We will still use our hard-earned money to buy these weapons. That is double jeopardy. Double jeopardy. Add that on top of the sufferings that Nigerians are already going through. The IMF and the World Bank are pushing these positions to solidify their world domination and post-imperialist stand. We should not fall for it, because it will be dividing the ECOWAS sub-region. This is a game that the US has picked up from the British. It is a game of divide and conquer, and they are doing it very well. It's the same thing they are doing everywhere in the world. Pushing India against Pakistan, pushing Israel against Palestine. Their stock in trade is divide and conquer. Tinubu should not allow Nigeria to be divided against her neighbors by the same divide and conquer tactics of the elite group of people in the US-led West. It shouldn't. It will not serve us well at all.
The Senate recognizes the fact that President Tinubu, by virtue of his correspondence, had not asked for approval of the Parliament or approval of this Senate to go to war, has been erroneously suggested in some quarters. Rather, Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief had expressed, and I quote, a wish to respectfully solicit the support of the National Assembly in the successful implementation of the ECOWAS resolutions as outlined in the said communications. The Senate pledges the total support of the Senate and by extension the National Assembly to the ECOWAS leadership under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in resolving the political situation in Niger and returning the country to democratic governance in the nearest future. The Senate pledges the total support. The Senate pledges the total support. The Senate pledges the total support of the Senate and by extension the National Assembly to the ECOWAS leadership under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in resolving the political situation in Niger and returning the country to democratic governance in the nearest future. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the closed session? Yes. Those who are in support say aye. Aye. Those who are against say nay. The ayes have it.
ECOWAS had zero tolerance for coups. The regional bloc said it would take all measures necessary to restore constitutional order if its demands were not met within a week. Such measures may include the use of force, and military chiefs are to meet immediately to plan for an intervention. Any military intervention against Niger would amount to a declaration of war against Burkina Faso and Mali. In the event of an invasion of Niger, they would immediately resign from ECOWAS and take action to defend themselves and the Nigerian people. Mali and Burkina Faso further criticized ECOWAS and its leaders, accusing them of hypocrisy. Algeria has also warned against military intervention in Niger, calling for prudence and restraint. However, prominent Nigerians, organizations, and experts have warned Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not to lead Nigeria and the ECOWAS to take military action against coup leaders in the Republic of Niger. Those who spoke on the stalemate in Niger include members of the Arua Consultative Forum, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, legal luminary Femi Falana, ex-Kaduna Central Senator Shehu Sani, and prominent columnist and former presidential spokesman Segun. Also, they argue that President Tinubu should not allow himself to be pushed to initiate and trigger a war with a neighboring country and later be left stranded. No West African country has any military capability to start or sustain a war with Niger Republic. Everyone will be relying on Nigeria, and since Nigeria offsets 70% of the budget of ECOWAS, they argue that it will eventually have to use its own money to prosecute the operation, a confusing commitment for a country struggling with rising fuel and food costs, inflation, and other economic crises at home. Lastly, they insist that Nigeria's ongoing war against terrorism in its own territory requires its full concentration, making war in Niger an ill-advised decision with potentially catastrophic consequences. In light of these grave risks facing Nigeria and the entire West African bloc, many are cautioning President Tinubu against becoming a mere puppet of Western powers and being dragged into a perilous proxy war by yielding to pressure to invade Niger. The potential humanitarian crisis, the threat to the millions in northern Nigeria with ties to Niger, the risk to Nigerian refugees, and the delicate balance in the fight against terrorism all underscore the need for careful consideration. Experts insist that Western powers like France, the USA, the UN, and the European Union will only back the military intervention to secure their various interests. But in the end, Nigeria and ECOWAS will have to bear the dire consequences and guilt of potentially creating the continent's next Libya post-Gaddafi at the behest of Western agendas.